Hello everyone. Today's video we will relax with the story, Why You Can't Survive a Day in Ancient Egypt. Sounds strange, right? Because when mentioning ancient Egypt, we often think of the pyramids, powerful pharaohs, majestic temples, and the Nile sparkling under the sunlight. But if someone put you, a modern person, back in time to a day in ancient Egypt, are you sure you can survive an afternoon? Because the first thing you'll face isn't mystery or magic, but deadly heat. Midday temperatures in that land can soar past 40 degrees Celsius, and you'll have no air conditioning, no bottled water, no sunglasses, no sunscreen, not even a decent piece of cloth to cover your head unless you're quick to beg or steal it from someone. And in this time of year, every move is watched by the eyes of guards, priests, village heads, or even the village magistrate himself. Now imagine opening your eyes and being placed in the middle of a crowded marketplace in Thebes in 1350 BC, where everyone speaks a language you don't understand. There's the noise of vendors, the banging of stones, the scolding of overseers, and the screams of slaves being beaten for accidentally dropping their master's pot. You'll quickly realize this is no game. Where do you fit into this social hierarchy? The answer is at the bottom, because if you're not a noble or a priest, which you're clearly not, you're a peasant, a craftsman, or worse, a slave. Not to mention, you have no papers to prove your identity. No one will believe you're from the future, and you're almost certainly going to be forced into forced labor. Even in a niche like baking, if you stumble into a workshop, you'll sweat by hand, bake bread in a clay oven, and live with flies, mold, and hot fumes all day long. But that's not all. The next thing that will kill you slowly but surely is water. You're parched, and you take a sip from a water jug on the corner. But you don't know. The ancient Egyptians drank water mixed with barley or lightly fermented like beer because their water sources could be full of bacteria, worms, and parasites. You take a sip, and a few hours later you may have severe diarrhea, poisoning, or convulsions from the infection. Your modern immune system, accustomed to clean water and sterilized food, will be completely helpless against the ancient microorganisms that the Egyptians evolved to withstand. What about food? Oh, you think you'll find anything edible among the sun-baked goods? You might find bread, a hard stone-baked loaf made from flour that's been ground with fine sand. Egypt is famous for having dental problems from eating too much sand without even realizing it. Or fruit, if you can stomach the flies and maggot eggs that are laying on it. Or Nile fish, if you're brave enough to eat it cooked on a smoky grill. But remember, there's no iodized salt, no refrigeration, and almost no food hygiene as you know it. A simple meal can leave you sick for a week, if you survive. And then there's the clothes. What are you wearing? T-shirt jeans? Throw them away. They'll make you hot and attract the attention of the locals. If you're lucky, you'll be given a white linen cloth to wrap around your body like a commoner. But that cloth isn't as soft as you think. It can be rough and itchy. Without proper footwear, your feet will blister from the rocks and the scorching earth. You think you can hide in the shade. Sorry, only the nobility owns houses. And you're a stranger, landless, nameless, and without rights. Furthermore, your behavior could be considered heretical or rebellious. A slip of the tongue about RA, or failure to bow to a statue of Horus as you passed a temple, could result in you being found guilty of blasphemy. Punishment could include beatings, starvation, or blood rituals. The Egyptians lived by the belief that the gods were ever watchful and unforgiving. They accepted poverty and hardship, but they never defied the gods, and you, with your modern liberal mindset, would quickly become a threat. And then, as the sun is high in the sky, you are exhausted, thirsty, dizzy, when a voice calls from afar. A man in a white robe, holding a staff, points straight at you and orders two soldiers to arrest you. They don't speak English. You don't understand their language, but you know very well you are in big trouble. You are dragged into a low-ceilinged, dimly lit, earthen house. On the walls are painted images of your crimes, symbols of Anubis and Ma'at. The judge asks you something, and you can't answer. You smile awkwardly, then shake your head, trying to explain. To no avail. Immediately, your legs are whipped, your hands are tied, and you are dragged behind you. And it's only noon. You are dragged through the scorching sun, through narrow, dusty streets. On the left are stonecutters, their backs drenched in sweat, their skin as red as coals. On the right are a group of women pounding rice in large wooden mortars, their movements as rhythmic as if they had been doing it all their lives. They glance at you, a bound stranger, face full of confusion, with curiosity and pity. But no one intervenes. Everyone knows, if a person is captured by soldiers, it is best not to ask questions. You've been led to a huge, half-built structure, a tomb, perhaps, or an annex to the Karnak temple. It's called the House of the Living Dead, a place where condemned men work themselves to exhaustion, or die of hunger, thirst, or a misplaced stone. And that's where you're about to enter. Here, there's no concept of shifts or breaks. Some people scream after slipping into a hole, some smash their fingers while carrying rocks, and some remain silent forever under the dirt, never to be dug up. The supervisors, called medjs, don't use whips like in Hollywood movies, but heavy wooden sticks, and they beat them without warning. There's no time to explain, and no rules of protection. You are given a chisel, pushed toward the pile of rocks, and told to start chiseling. If you react slowly, the stick will speak. You might think you'd use the modern trick of running away. But remember, you have no map, no language, no idea where the desert is from the village, and if you run, you'll likely run into guards or stumble into a cemetery where trespassers are believed to be stalked by the god Seth. The legend is so strong that it keeps the common folk at bay. And you, the ignorant one, will be the only one who dares to go, until you come across a rotting corpse or a half-buried grave, and you realize that there's a reason for all the rumors. Hunger sets in. Hunger in a civilization where bread is the staple food, but only for those who have rations. You have no name, no rank, no specific labor group. That is, no official rations. If you're lucky, you'll be given a crust of dry bread, a burnt crust covered in ash and tiny bits of grit, and water, if any, will be murky water from a pit. Soak it in water and you'll see sediment. Drink it or not. If you don't, you'll faint from dehydration. If you drink it, you might get uncontrollable diarrhea. And so you begin to understand why the ancient Egyptians relied so heavily on the Nile. They used it not only to irrigate their fields, but also for cleansing, rituals, and healing. But those at the bottom of society, like you, didn't have easy access to clean water. Pure water was reserved for temples and priests. And you drank from the ground where the oxen, the donkeys, the laborers all trod. Then, as the afternoon begins to fade, you think, finally, the day is done. But no, there's no modern concept of finishing the day. If the sun hasn't set, if the supervisor hasn't pulled out his baton, you're still a machine. Sore feet? Tired? Fading? Bear it. Collapse? You'll be carried outside, have water poured on your face, and back to work. If you protested, even if it was just a grunt, you were considered disobedient. And the punishment for disobedience in Egyptian times was not light. You might be tied to a post and beaten with a stick 100 times. You might have your head shaved, smeared with mud, and paraded through the construction site. Or worse, thrown into the river as a sacrifice. The stranger was considered a bad omen. And yet, amidst all this chaos, you are also confronted with a spiritual world that you do not understand. The ancient Egyptians lived in a universe filled with gods. Every step, every hand movement, every cough could be an omen. If a scarab beetle crawled across your foot while you were working, someone might scream at you to stop and perform a dispelling ceremony. If you accidentally stepped on a painting of Ra in a temple, You were considered to have offended the gods and could be burned in the temple grounds to wash away your sins. You begin to understand. Surviving here requires more than just food, water, shade, and ingenuity. It also requires trust and an understanding of every corner of Egyptian society, something you don't have. And as the sun sets behind the western mountains, where the Egyptians believed the dead lived, you still have to stack stones, still have to obey orders. Your bones ache, your throat is dry, your hands bleed from gripping the chisel all day. You don't know the time. You don't know what time it is. You don't know when you'll sleep or where you'll sleep. And the question that pops into your head desperately is, how did they survive like that for thousands of years? You don't have an answer, but what you do know is you're close to falling, and the day isn't over yet. You think that at night you can at least breathe a little? No. When the sun sets in the western horizon, you are not allowed to return home, because you have no home. The only people who have a place to sleep are the locals with families and identities. But you, a stranger of unknown origin, will be pushed into the slave barracks, or simply left outside with the others, exhausted, lying around like the walking dead. You've never felt anything like it. The night wind blows across the cold sand, but you're lying on the ground. No blankets, no pillows, no mattress, just the hard earth beneath your back. Flies and mosquitoes buzz in your ears, and the howls of strayed dogs echo from the riverbank. The stench of animal dung, human sweat, and uncollected garbage lingers around you, making your head spin. You try to close your eyes, but hunger makes your stomach growl, and your limbs ache as if they've been crushed. Sleep. How can you sleep? Then you hear a noise, a rustling, someone squirming. A hand is digging into the duffel bag beside you, trying to rummage. You catch your breath. It's a skinny kid, no more than 10 years old, searching for any crumbs you might have hidden. It doesn't look at you. It's simply too hungry to care if you're awake. When it finds nothing, it leaves, as quietly as it came. You're stunned, not out of fear, but out of helplessness. You have nothing to give it, or yourself. The night passes slowly, without a clock. You have no idea what time it is. Only a faint glow creeping over the horizon dawn. You should be happy about the morning, but to you it's a signal for another day. And you're not ready. Not at all. You are woken by the shouts of the guards. Everyone is made to get up and wash their faces in the Nile, which is full of mud and floating trash. Then they're divided into new work groups. And this time, you are assigned to a harvest team, which sounds easier than chiseling stone. But don't dream. The rice fields stretch out under the rising sun, looking peaceful and beautiful. But when you start to pick up the sickle, a heavy, blunt bronze tool, you realize this is another nightmare. Harvesting rice in ancient Egypt was not a picturesque process of walking through the fields and singing. You had to bend over and cut each bundle of rice low to the ground, barehanded, without gloves, in the rising sun, and without a tree to shade it. Every time you straightened up, a stick would poke your back. Hurry up. The fields are not just rice. They're also insects, fleas, grass snakes, and thorns. You get cut once, and blood flows. But no one stops. You don't dare. Some people even lose fingers, because the sickle slips. By mid-morning, your head is pounding from sun and dehydration. You're panting, sweat dripping down your back. But you have to keep going. Each sheaf has to be stacked just right. One wrong step could get you punished, or sent off to a separate field, where there's no support group. That's when you realize that, in ancient Egypt, a day wasn't defined by 8 hours of work and 8 hours of rest, like it is in modern times. Their day was a continuous series of tasks, stopping only when the sun went down, or when your body collapsed. And the truth is, the ancient Egyptians did not view hard work as a negative thing. They believed that work was a way to serve the gods, to maintain Ma'at, the order of the universe. They accepted pain, hunger, even death, if it pleased the gods. The idea was so ingrained that many people willingly worked themselves to exhaustion And you, a modern person thrown into this world, don't understand any of it. You just panic. At noon, you are once again assigned to a new task, drawing water from a deep well to water the plants around the temple. And when you think you will at least be working near the shade, you are mistaken. The well is deep, the pulley is crude. The rope is made of jute that cuts into your palms. The water is heavy. You have to pull in buckets, pour it into troughs, and then carry it to spread it. And you are followed closely by a gaunt, expressionless overseer, who holds a stick in his hand as if ready to strike at any moment. You cough at the smoke rising from the burning of diseased cattle next door. You have no idea that you are standing near the most unclean place, and you have no idea why people are looking at you with such aloof eyes, until you hear an old woman whisper, "Cursed one." You just threw water in the direction of a sacred statue. You are being accused of blasphemy. No chance to explain, and you understand. This is not just a society of hard labor, but also a maze of invisible laws, mysterious religious rituals, and harsh beliefs. One wrong step and you die. No trial, no lawyers, just one decision from the priest or the local official, and you disappear from this world as if you never existed. And as the sun begins to set again, your back feels like it's breaking. Your legs feel like they're giving out. You've survived more than half the day, but you don't know if you'll make it to sunset. In the afternoon, the sun is not as harsh as at noon, but the air is as pungent as in a brick kiln. The smell of sweat, coal smoke, the smell of steaming soil, and the rotting smell of fish and cow carcasses thrown on the riverbank combine into a nauseating mixture. You try not to vomit. Vomiting dehydrates you, and without hydration, no one will give you another sip. Your body is now just a force machine. Your limbs operate on instinct. Your mind reels from hunger and lack of sleep, and you still have to keep going. The next task is to carry clay from the riverbank to the brick kiln. You don't know who came up with this brilliant idea, but it's the worst job you've had all morning. The clay is thick, heavy as rock, slippery as oil, and you have to carry it with a bamboo basket or bare hands. One slip and you'll fall face down in the mud. A few people around you look like living statues, covered in mud, their hair stuck together like wax. No one says anything. No one laughs. Everyone just works their heads down, as if their lives are hanging by a thread. You think about home, about life where you come from. Air conditioning, rice, internet, comfortable bedrooms, and clean drinking water whenever you want. But here, you can't even pee without asking permission. That's right, in ancient Egypt, everything belonged to the gods, including your own body. If you peed on sacred ground, or near the Nile without first making a ritual, it was considered sacrilege. And the punishment goes without saying, you guessed it. Then something happens that almost kills you. While carrying a basket of clay through a small alley, you bump into a man in a white robe, clearly a priest or a mandarin. He staggers and falls to the ground. You fumble to catch him. Before you can apologize, 2 guards pounce on you and slam you to the ground without a word. One hits you in the back with a stick, another in your calf. You gasp, your eyes glaze over. The man stands up and brushes his robes, not even glancing at you, as if you were an ant that just happened to cross the road. Not a word of sympathy, not a drop of water, just a lesson. Touching someone of status without permission deserves to be beaten to death. You crawl up, blood dripping from your mouth, your body shaking. But you have to keep going. Otherwise, you'll be dragged outside, tied to a stake, and left to dry in the sun like everyone else, the lightest punishment for lateness. At this point, a group of workers started singing something. The melody was monotonous, repetitive. You didn't understand the words, but you followed the beat. It was probably the only way they could stay awake. You started humming along, not because you liked it, but because otherwise you would collapse on the spot. You begin to realize the ancient Egyptians were not all evil or cruel. They were victims of a system built on absolute faith and strict discipline. They didn't think it was wrong to hit you. They just believed that you were an alien, not part of the divine order that had existed for thousands of years. And anyone who didn't belong to that order simply didn't deserve to exist. Near the end of the day, you are tasked with washing the feet of the statue of Horus with water laced with flower petals. It seems easy, but it is not. If you pour it in the wrong place, if your hands are not clean, if you accidentally drop the bowl containing the sacred water on the ground, you will be found guilty of blasphemy, and the punishment is to be burned alive at the next ceremony. Luckily, a girl of about 16 helps you adjust your bowl. She doesn't say much, just glances at you and gestures with her hands. But her silence is a blessing. For the first time all day, someone doesn't look at you like you're trash. She's like you, a temple water carrier, a low-class girl whose name no one remembers. You don't dare ask where she's from. You don't dare say thank you. You just nod when you're done, and then everyone goes back to work, as if kindness is only allowed for a few brief seconds. As the sun sinks into the west and the light turns a deep orange, the work comes to a temporary end. You are not allowed to go home. You are only allowed to sit for a while, your back against the wall, your eyes on the rocks, your heart pounding, your hands shake, your legs give out. You have survived a long day, but you know, this is not the end. This is only the first day. In the darkness, you hear a priest chanting prayers for someone who died that afternoon, maybe of a stroke, or crushed by a rock. No one knows his name, only that this morning he was alive, and this afternoon he is part of the dust. You are silent. There is nothing left to think, and there is nothing left to wish for. You know one thing. If someone said time travel to ancient Egypt is fun, you would be the first to stand up and object. You thought the second night would be easier than the first? No, this night is even colder. Your body is exhausted, but you can't sleep. Not only because of the pain, but also because your mind is constantly tormented by the same question. How can they live like this every day, all their lives? Groans came from all around in the darkness. There was the sound of someone coughing, the sound of shuffling feet, the sound of a woman crying for a child, a newborn who had died that afternoon from diarrhea caused by drinking dirty water. No one cried with her. No one came to comfort her. Birth and death were commonplace here. A dead child was not worth stopping work or praying for. If it was not the son of a high-ranking official, no one would care. You huddle in the dark, your stomach empty, your throat dry as paper, and your head pounding. The afternoon's blow has swollen and ached so badly that you dare not lie on your side. You wish for morning to come quickly, even though you know what awaits. And then morning comes. The sun is up, shining just like yesterday. But today is different. You are called. 2 guards drag you away from the group. No one says why. They tie your hands, blindfold you with a dirty cloth, and drag you through narrow alleys where the smell of human waste and garbage is overwhelming. You sweat in fear. Your heart races. You think, am I going to be executed just because I bumped into a Mandarin? After nearly half an hour of being dragged, your blindfold is removed. Before you stands a tall, dark man, his head shaved, dressed in white robes trimmed with gold, a high priest. His eyes study you as if he were examining an object. Silently, coldly, you are told to kneel. Bow your head, a mandatory position when standing before someone in authority. No eye contact, no speaking until asked. And you do. Your heart still beats like a drum in your chest. Then he said something that made you shiver. You come from afar. You bear no divine mark. No one bears witness to your being a child of R.A. Before you could understand, another person, apparently the scribe, nodded and wrote on the tablet. You continued listening. You are suspected of being a spy for the Hyksos. Hyksos, a tribe that invaded Egypt, enemies of the royal court. You are shocked. You don't understand why you are being labeled like that. Maybe because of your different clothes? Because you don't have papers? Or maybe because you don't look like them. You want to protest, but you don't dare. Because you know, one wrong word at this moment can make your head fall to the ground in just a few seconds. The priest approached, holding a vial of white powder. He sprinkled it around you, murmuring a prayer. You stood still as a statue. Then he commanded, "He is not yet evil, but he must be controlled." You don't understand what control means until they drag you to a side temple, tie you to a stone stake, and shave your head. No explanation, no water, and then comes the fire purification. Burning incense around your body, blowing the smoke into your face. You cough. Tears stream down your face. Your throat burns, but no one looks at you. It's a compulsory ritual to prove you're not carrying evil spirits from other lands. When they let you go, you feel nothing. Not anger, not fear, just emptiness. You understand. In ancient Egypt, you had no right to exist unless you were part of an order recognized by the gods and the pharaoh. That afternoon, you were given a change of duty. This time not manual labor, but carrying human excrement. Sounds funny, but it was an extremely important part of Egyptian society. Human excrement, especially that of the aristocracy, was collected to fertilize the fields. In many places, it was also used in medicinal rituals or exorcisms. Your job was to go through the rich houses, collect a fresh product, put it in a leather bag, and bring it to the processing area. It was a job that stinks beyond description, but it was still considered better than being whipped. You do this while silently saying to yourself, "If anyone is watching this and thinks they can survive a day here, I really hope they think again." No phone, no clean water, no decent food, no shelter, no voice, and absolutely no value if you are not part of a class that was assigned at birth. At the end of the day, you are allowed to return to the sleeping area, where there are a few torn mats, some people lying around, some people never to wake up again. You see the body of a young man in his 20s, the one who helped you push the cart of bricks yesterday, lying motionless in the corner, eyes still open, mouth full of white foam. No one mentions his name. No one bothers to cover his face. And you understand, for the first time, not with panic, but with the naked truth. You wouldn't survive a day in ancient Egypt. And if you are still alive today, it is only because luck is still playing with you. Hello, everyone. Let's continue with the final part of the story, where you, a modern person, are barely surviving in the world of ancient Egypt. And even though you have experienced hunger, thirst, beatings, humiliation, there is still one more challenge waiting for you. Not from people, but from faith there. The next morning, before the sun has fully risen, you are woken up. A man in a falcon-embroidered robe leads you to a gleaming white stone temple, the temple of Thoth, the god of knowledge and law. You don't understand why, but a piece of parchment is held out, on which is scrawled a familiar symbol, the Eye of Horus. The problem is you accidentally drew that symbol in the sand yesterday while playing with your fingers during your lunch break. A harmless joke to you, but here it is blasphemy. You are forced to kneel before a priest. He doesn't ask why you did it. He doesn't care if you did it on purpose. The only thing they care about is that you are not the one who has divine permission to use that symbol, and you are subjected to examination of the soul. In that ritual, you are asked to put your hand on the scale. On the other side, a heart of someone, maybe an animal, maybe a human, was also placed. A stone statue of the god Anubis stood beside it, and a feather of the goddess Maat, a symbol of justice and cosmic order, was placed on the third pan. If the scales tip in your favor, you pass. If not, you sin. Of course, the ceremony is just a formality. The scales are prearranged. And of course, you don't pass. You are declared to have a heavy soul because of your lies and disrespect. Instead of being executed, which would have disrupted the good energy of the temple, you were thrown outside to be subjected to a curse of insanity. A sorcerer smeared your forehead with a mixture of donkey blood, ashes from burned crocodile bones, and fermented yogurt, saying that if your heart is not pure, you will die within 3 days of insanity. You don't believe it, but your head starts spinning. Maybe it's hunger. Maybe it's mild poisoning from the mixture itself. You see people around you start avoiding you, pointing, saying that guy is possessed. That's when you realize something terrible. In ancient Egyptian society, if people believed you were cursed, you lost the right to eat, to touch others, or even to step into their shadow. You became an unclean thing. No one dares to give you water. No one dares to look at you. Even children throw stones at you to drive away evil spirits. People who used to work with you, who used to give you half a loaf of bread, now step back, avoiding you as if you were a corpse. You wander all afternoon, thirsty and hungry. Finally, you collapse on the banks of the Nile, a place that just a few days ago you saw as a beautiful sacred river in your textbooks. Now, it's just a place you think you're going to die. But luck struck again, or more precisely, chaotic nonsense off ancient times to save you. A group of Nubians, traders from the far south, happened to be passing by. They saw you lying there, your head covered in ash, your face purple, and guessed that you were the shaman undergoing inner purification. Believing you to be true, they did not dare touch you, but they did not let you die either. One of them threw you a camelskin bag of water and some dried dates. The pilgrim needs water, he said. You can't thank them anymore. But you drink, you eat, and for the first time in days, you feel something alive. At dusk, you slip through the alleys and hide in an abandoned cowshed south of the city. There, you find a few people like yourself, runaway slaves, orphans, the sick, people who have been expelled from temples. No one asks who you are. They just give you a piece of cloth to cover yourself with. And you sleep, truly sleep for the first time, in the arms of outcasts, but more compassionate than the worshippers of Ra. And that's when you realize the most important thing. No matter how much you learn about ancient Egypt, no matter how many books you read, how many documents you watch, you will never understand the true severity until you have to live in it. No Wi-Fi, no fans, no personal freedom, and above all, no place for you to exist if you don't belong to the niche that society has assigned you since birth. If you are a commoner, you are worthless. If you are a stranger, you are a threat. If you have a different opinion, you are a heretic. And if you just want to live in peace, sorry, there is no such thing as peace for the anonymous. So, why can't you survive a day in ancient Egypt? Because just the fact that I want to survive was already an act of rebellion. Thank you everyone for watching until the end of today's story. If you found this video interesting, don't forget to leave a comment. How many hours do you think you would have lived in ancient Egypt? A day? A morning? Or would you have been thrown into the Nile as soon as you arrived? Wishing everyone a peaceful evening, where no one forces you to kneel to survive. See you in the next videos.